Welcome to KNN. KNN is brought to you by Bob Knakal, Chairman of New York Investment Sales at JLL.
Hi, I'm Jon Hageman, Managing Director at JLL. Welcome to KNN. Today I'm here with Bob Knakal, Chairman of New York Investment Sales, and today we're going to talk about investors' concerns for 2022. So Bob, we've been discussing what we think our clients' perspectives are for the rest of the year. We clearly have our own view based on what the stats we saw in the fourth quarter and the first quarter. We've been talking about what the product types and how they've been performing and what we've seen, but one of the things was, what are our clients thinking and what are their concerns for the rest of the year? Why don't you talk about what we did to find that out and what the results were?
Yeah, Hags, it was kind of an interesting exercise. We typically on KNN, we look at numbers, we try to interpret numbers, try to connect dots between politics and the way the real estate market is performing, and look very granularly at stats, how many properties are selling, what's the dollar volume. But what we wanted to do was, given these unique times that we're in, is get an understanding of what our clients are thinking about. What are market participants concerned about? So we sent out a survey. We had 847 clients respond, telling us what they were most concerned about. And we asked people to say, what's your number one concern? Some folks came back with 3 or 4 or 5 concerns. Most came back with 1. But we ranked them according to how many folks had that particular thing as a concern. And it was interesting, the number one concern of market participants in the commercial real estate market in the city has been politics and regulation. And overwhelmingly, people were concerned about where things are headed from a political perspective. We've seen, particularly in the multifamily space, rent regulation has changed very significantly against owners' interests, and it looks like those headwinds are continuing to be there. So that was a big concern, where we're headed relative to other regulation that may be implemented, or positions that our elected officials are going to take that have not been so positive for the real estate market. We look at what happened with the Kingsbridge Armory in the Bronx. That was, I think, over 10 years ago already. And you think about the tens of thousands of working hours that folks have missed out on in the Bronx because that project didn't move forward. You look at Annabelle Basin and what didn't happen there. I think there's maybe only 1 or 2 other cities in the whole country that wouldn't have wanted the Annabelle Basin to get developed. And then you look at the rezoning of Industry City and how that fell apart, and so many things that just make so much sense from a real estate perspective and a business perspective that have not been implemented because of the position that politicians have taken. So if we look at these dynamics, folks clearly were concerned about that. And so I say to those people, one of the things we have to do is get out and vote. I'm not suggesting you vote for one side of the aisle or the other side of the aisle, but we get out and vote. I think in de Blasio's second election, only 14% of registered voters in New York City actually did vote. Voter apathy is a big problem, so I encourage everybody, get out there and vote. You can change the way things go. But that's been a big concern. And one respondent say that they felt like elected officials don't think residential real estate should be a for-profit business, which is an interesting perspective. But that was clearly number one, far and away the biggest concern was political headwinds that we're facing in New York, and how those political headwinds are driving investment capital out of New York City. So that was clearly a number one.
Bob, you mentioned the political headwinds causing an outflow of capital out of New York. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I think a number of investors are looking for a more hospitable place to invest. We've seen a couple of large institutional clients say they're no longer looking to buy in New York. Fortunately, there are other people that are coming to buy in New York, so that's a positive thing. But, I started in the business here, Hags, in '84. From 1984 through 2019, New York had the highest investment sales volume of any city in the country, not surprisingly. In 2020, we dropped to number 2. In 2021, we dropped to number 7. That's not a good trend. New York has more properties, more square footage, more of everything than any other city. We should have the highest investment sales. But I think that we need to have a shift in recognizing that the real estate community provides more than half of the tax revenue in the city. And so we need a thriving real estate industry, we need a thriving business community, and to the extent that our elected officials understand that and embrace those industries. It's nice to think that you want to do things with revenue to help different groups of people and different initiatives, but you need money in order to do that. So, thriving real estate and business communities would be great for New York.
So we talked about the number one issue being, political uncertainty in regulation. What was the number 2 response?
Very clearly, the second issue that are on people's mind is crime. Clearly, owners of office buildings particularly want to see people get back into New York, get back to the office. Our physical office occupancy is hovering around 37% today. People getting back to the office would be great for the office buildings, great for retailers. And the number one reason why people are not getting on the subway or the buses is that they're concerned about crime. So I'm very optimistic. Our new mayor will be able to turn things around. The crime statistics are up a little bit since the beginning of the year, but we're hoping that the things that he's implementing will change that. We need to have a safe city. We need to have people come back to the city. We need tourists to come back to the city. People get back to the office. Mm-hmm. So crime was clearly some of the comments that came in from folks regarding crime. I won't get into. It was a family show, but it was clearly on top of everybody's mind that we need a safe city in order for the city to thrive.
Political uncertainty, crime. What's number 3?
Number 3, another very clear choice for folks was the expiration of 421A. At the time we sent out this survey, it was not clear whether 421A legislation was going to be in the budget or not. It didn't make it into the budget. That's a big concern, particularly from our developer clients. Every developer would love to build a residential rental building. It's not economically viable to build a rental building unless we have a 421A or an Affordable New York or a 485W or whatever they're going to call it. We need some. The current legislative session ends on June 2nd. There's a tremendous amount of items that are on that agenda. We don't know if they're going to get to the 421A legislation or not, but that's clearly something that's front and center on the minds of folks. And we need that tax abatement program to create the production of residential rental units in the city. Very, very big issue.
So Bob, we talked about the major 3. What were some of the other issues that we heard from respondents?
A number of issues, and it was an interesting array of things. Clearly folks are concerned about homelessness. They're concerned about rates, and real estate tax policy is a big one. The burden on buildings, especially apartment buildings, where we're seeing taxes of 33, 34, 35% even of gross revenue is really hurting some people. Mm-hmm. So tax policy is a big one. We also see folks are still concerned about out-migration. Clearly there's a lot of people moving into the city, and that's a very positive thing. If you talk to owners of free market apartment buildings, about 75% of apartments that are being rented in New York today are being rented to people from outside New York. Mm-hmm. That's a positive thing, but there's a concern about who's moving out and who's moving in, mm-hmm. in terms of their economic viability and the impact that'll have on our tax base. So there's so many different issues that are concerned to people. And we'll have to see how these issues unfold as we move. But those are some of the things that our clients are thinking about today, and it'll be interesting to see what's on their mind 6 months from today.